And so when you got nearly 50,000 students in Africa like we do, and they have never had those opportunities, but they have the talent, they have the desire, and they're children of God, and they're not any different than me except for opportunity. You want to help them.
Welcome to the Engaged by Design podcast, where we help you reach more learners more effectively. We are honored and pleased to have two special guests with us on the EBD podcast today. First is President Brian Ashton, president of BYU-Pathway, as well as Boyd Baggett, who's the associate academic vice president for curriculum at BYU-Idaho. And we are so happy to have you here today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So we'd love to have you introduce yourselves briefly to the audience here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and the roles you have right now.
Well, as Vernon said, I'm president of BYU-Pathway Worldwide. And my career was as an entrepreneur, actually. But in 2012, I was asked to go be what's called a mission president for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 3 years. And coming out of that, I was then asked by the church to help lead their Sunday school and write curriculum for the worldwide church of 17 million members around the world. And when I finished that assignment, I was asked to come over to BYU-Pathway Worldwide. And BYU-Pathway is a little bit unique in that about 70% of our students are outside the United States. Mm-hmm. We're approaching 100,000 students. And sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that makes us a little different.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Boyd, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here?
I came to BYU-Idaho in 2008. I came here to teach religion, but started having committee assignments in learning outcomes, assessment of student learning, accreditation, and those types of things. And that has just taken over my day job. So that's what I do all the time.
Institutional effectiveness. Yes, all those things that are sometimes the unsung heroes are doing that work in that area. You know, I want to give a little background that I pulled. So Brian, you came, and I didn't say BYU Pathway Worldwide. I need to catch that worldwide because that just gives it the gravitas, right?
Well, and we're in nearly 200 countries, so we really are worldwide.
That is amazing. And just to go back, the initial year of this is around 2009, 2010?
2009. It actually started at BYU-Idaho and then was spun out in 2017.
So this is double-digit, remarkable logarithmic growth that's happening, and it's happening in over 200 countries, which is amazing. The other thing we'll talk about later is that your institutions were involved in being the first to offer a 3-year baccalaureate of applied science degree and approved for that, which, between 90 and 96 hours, which is an amazing breakthrough. And it's really interesting. So, Michael, where do we want to start?
Well, how about a story? Brian, you were telling us a little bit about being a mission president. Where did you serve? And then kind of from entrepreneur to college president worldwide, college president. There's a story in there somewhere. Can you tell us a little bit about that path and how this happened?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me actually start back when I was 19.
All right.
I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 2 years in Peru. And I really came to love those people. When I was, economically, things were very difficult. It was the height of the Shining Path Rebellion, and inflation was 8,000%, and unemployment was over 50%. And it was very difficult to get an education. I really wanted to help those people with education. I wanted to start a school, and when I went to college at Brigham Young University and later at Harvard, I really thought I want to be an entrepreneur so that I can eventually get down there and help people start their own businesses as part of that school. Of course, that never came to pass, but when I later the church asked me to be a mission president in Houston, Texas, where I oversaw about 700 missionaries. And then I got to be involved in our Sunday school curriculum and our Sunday school program worldwide. And then they asked me to do this. And I thought, this is kind of what I wanted to do as a young man. And actually, we have a great entrepreneurship program. It's an entrepreneurship program of necessity. So we're not looking to help our students get venture capital. It's start businesses and build them. And it's a great program. But I think what has really motivated me as I think about that is one, a love for people. I learned that as a missionary in Peru. I think also, as I mentioned, we're sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we just believe that everyone is a child of God and has divine potential. And when you start to believe that, then you have this desire to go out and help people. You realize that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And so this opportunity to go out and help people worldwide, give them the same opportunities that I've had. I mean, I was able to go to Harvard. I was able to do what I've done because I had a grandfather his father was a sheep herder, never made any money, retired, and realized he had no money to retire, and died just less than a week later out of desperation.
Wow.
My grandfather said, I'm not going to do that. He got an education, became an auto mechanic. My dad went to Northwestern and got an MBA, had a good career in business. I stand on their shoulders. And so when you got nearly 50,000 students in Africa like we do, and they have never had those opportunities, but they have the talent, they have the desire, and they're children of God, and they're not any different than me, except for opportunity. You want to help them.
Wow. So what was the biggest opportunity when you joined BYU-Pathway Worldwide? What did you see could happen, could change?
Well, I just think that, so for me, the biggest thing was we had an opportunity to help people throughout the world who had never had these kinds of opportunities. Let me give you an example. Just take Africa, because it's the most obvious example. There are seats in Africa for 9% of the college-age youth. Africa will double in population between now and 2050. So by that time, the college-age population, there will be seats for less than 5% of the students.
Wow.
We provide one of the lowest cost bachelor's degrees in the world. We're focused on that. The church helps subsidize it. We're not trying to subsidize a campus. We don't have any of the expenses associated with campus. And so in the United States, our bachelor's degree is less than $7,000 before scholarships. In Africa, with scholarships, a bachelor's degree is somewhere between $100 and $300 for all 3 years.
That's amazing.
So that's a differential tuition, and that's actually very, very thoughtful about what is affordable for those students in Africa.
That's right. And so we do that all around the world. So the Pacific, Central America, South America, Eastern Europe, Asia, everywhere. And so I just saw this opportunity to help people to realize their potential, just as their talent, but as children of God, and to receive light and truth into their lives. And that's exciting to me, to see someone change and to see someone have more opportunity to become what they're capable of becoming. Boy, that's an educator's dream.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a generational change that we have an opportunity to impact. Boyd, tell us a little bit about your story and how you fit into this whole picture.
Well, I'll tell you, I came here from Burley, Idaho. It's not a long ways away, but a couple hours down the road.
Yep.
And not having been a part of higher education, except for my own degree path at BYU, I heard over and over again, how do we help educate? How do we get more people to come to college, right? And as a community leader, as a leader in the church, trying to help those young people starting out their families take the motivation, get to college, the two things that were their barriers were time and money. I can't afford time or money to go to college. And then coming to BYU, Idaho, which before, was Rick's college, 2-year school, until in 2000, it was announced that it would be a 4-year school. And within 2 years, we were revved up and granting some 4-year degrees.
Yeah.
Again, opening the opportunity and doors of opportunity for education for more students. But still, when we come here to this campus, there are so many that can't make it to Rexburg, Idaho, can't make it to a campus for cost or other reasons, right? And so the whole online program at BYU, Idaho, the Pathway Department, if you will, was started so that they could look out and say, how do we take care of the hidden many in the world that can't come to campus, but still have an affordable opportunity? So watching that develop over here in this side of the campus and then to grow, I got involved, as I said before, with the outcomes and assessments part. How do we keep the quality education that we offer to our campus students just as good or as close to that as we can for our online students? And that was developing all across the country during that time period, right? But we really focused on the student learning outcome and keeping that quality education in place for the online student as well as the campus student. Watching that develop and seeing the success stories for the mom or dad trying to raise a family and go to college and keep their day job at the same time, that's been the miracle that we watch happen over and over and over again. It's been beautiful.
It's amazing.
And Boyd, you're mentioning, the iron triangle that they talk about in higher education of cost. So you're breaking the iron triangle by lowering the cost. You're creating wide access, but at the same time, as you're looking at that quality, the quality isn't diminished. And that is amazing, amazing value for that. Brian, if I was to meet the president of BYU-Pathway Worldwide, say, in a 4-year somewhere, what is one of those things how would you say in plain language, what does BYU-Pathway Worldwide do?
When we take a student, we can take any student, even if you haven't finished high school. We put them through a foundational program that we call Pathway Connect. It's about 6 months. It gives you confidence. It's life skills, professional skills, university skills. We have religion with it, which we think is really important because it teaches people who they are and it gives them faith in Jesus Christ and helps them learn that God can help them learn. And then we put them through a first certificate that's job ready. Our students drop out if you put them in general education first. They need to know that it is relevant to getting a job. At the end of that first certificate, 75% get a better job. That's 1 year. So Pathway Connect and that first certificate. The second year is the second job ready certificate and some general education. That gets you 71% of the students report they get a better job at that point. And so many of them have gotten 2 better jobs by this point. And then the third year is a third job ready certificate and the rest of their general education. We actually to get to a 3-year degree, we got rid of the electives. Our students were taking them at the end. It just didn't make any sense. They get a broad general, their general education program is broad. And so they get a good broad liberal arts education. But in 3 years, they get 2 to 3 better jobs. They become who they're well on their way to becoming who they're capable of becoming. And I think the other thing that we do that is really unique is that because so many of our students live in areas where where labor markets don't work very well, we help them get remote jobs. And if you think about our students, almost all of our programs are in English. We recently opened a Portuguese program, but prior to that, everything was in English. they work across borders. They're honest. Many of them have served missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they have a great desire to succeed because they see this as their opportunity. And that's just an employer's dream.
Now, to make it clear, do you have to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to be a student in BYU-Pathway Worldwide?
No, you don't. And about 25% of our students are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So of the 100,000 that we're talking about 25,000 are just serving out there with this fantastic tuition rate, high quality program. That is an amazing offering for an institution. It's really quite remarkable when I look at other places in higher education. Other question, sort of comment about this is, you have an architecture that's literally a learning architecture that builds upon real world applicability, because you have stackable credentials, stackable certificates that stack up into the degree. There's no wasted time, there's no wasted effort, and it's completely relevant. That has to be extremely motivating for the students.
It helps with retention. You know, people see that they're going to get a job. In Africa, for example, our students, 74% when they join BYU Pathway are getting one meal a day. And so we need to be focused on completion, accessibility, and helping them get jobs. And now they have to get the jobs. We don't get the jobs for them. But that kind of a program helps them have the money to stay in school, to eat, to support their families, but they see progress very, very quickly. And that just makes a huge difference for those types of learners.
That's amazing. Boyd, can you talk about this consortial relationship that you have with BYU Pathway Worldwide and, of course, Ensign College? Can you talk a little bit about how that works? So what happens when you have to make some big decisions? You got to get Brian in the room. I'm assuming that this is a very productive and good relationship.
Productive and good and very busy. Yes.
Yeah.
Brian can't beat all those meetings, and neither can I, but we have lots of delegates. We have people in the curriculum side. We have people in the policy side and student records. We have to do a lot of collaboration because we are three different entities, right? Pathway people, can I say it that way? The whole staff of Pathway Worldwide is essential for us to be successful in getting our courses and degrees out to the people in Alabama and Alaska and Africa. It really is a team effort, but we can't do it without them, because part of it is their input into what the curriculum needs are, and ours is to provide subject matter expertise and curriculum design expertise to put it in a format that's deliverable out there. And so we are really working together as teams in every aspect of the university to try to collaborate, find the best worldwide model for the worldwide student, but delivered from Rexburg, Idaho. That's what we're doing. And it takes a lot of collaboration and a lot of us saying, I've got to listen better to understand, because our paradigms have to shift. And that teamwork is essential.
And let me clarify one thing. If it wasn't clear, BYU Pathway is not accredited. We're more like a system. And so you can choose to get your, depending on which program you choose, you may get a degree from an accredited, U.S. accredited degree from either BYU-Idaho or Ensign College. That also helps lower our costs. We're part of what we call the church education system, which includes Brigham Young University, BYU-Idaho, BYU-Hawaii, Ensign College, and BYU Pathway. And BYU Pathway is the access provider. We can rely upon what they already do well. And so I can keep my staff very lean, which keeps our costs quite low.
And you have the backing of basically three institutions. You have two accredited institutions, and you have this provider that's able to access things like that. Talk a little bit more about how you're able to keep those costs low in your support model for students. You're over 200 countries. You're supporting them academically, all those other things. Talk about what is the secret to being able to support so many students so well that you're getting these great outcomes.
So we're not trying to take another model and then adapt it for online. We've built something that's optimal for online. And so we can do a lot of things that make sense. For example, we can hire international instructors. And there's some really good international instructors, and costs in international locations are lower. Now, most of our instructors do come from the United States, but we're able to hire outside the United States also. We use purely adjunct instructors. So we don't have full-time faculty. Our mentors are students in our programs, and they are further along than those they're mentoring. And that is very effective, but it also helps us keep our costs low. We don't have a campus. And so we're not trying to subsidize a campus. And so we've designed for online. Another thing that we do is we leverage the church. So we have chapels throughout the world. Our students can go to those chapels where they have access to computers and internet. And so if it's expensive where you live, that's an option for you. Another thing that we do is in Pathway Connect, that foundational program, the first 6 months, most of our students are first-time college students. They need someone to hold their hand. And while they have a mentor, they also meet either in person or online once a week. And we use senior couples from our church who volunteer. We call them service missionaries, who kind of guide those gatherings. There's always a lead student in each gathering each week they teach one another, but the lead student sets the tone and gives the instructions and learns leadership skills. But they have this senior couple that can help them. And so we're able to do a lot of things that our religious mission and institution helps us do, but also just the way we've designed it helps us to keep costs really low.
That would be the envy of so many places right
It's
now.
remarkable. I mean, I used to be a dean for Webster University, which had campuses in 8 countries in Asia, Africa, and in Europe, and couldn't control the cost like that. It's just so much more complicated when you're offering an American degree in all of those different countries. And we were in Ghana, and it was hard. It was not a very sustainable campus, right? So you've solved it by being online and global first, rather than campus first, I think.
Yeah, and that's really the key. If you design it for online, you're able to do a lot more. Even if you don't have the benefits of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints being your backer and supporting you. Just if you design for online first, that makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. So are there ongoing design choices that you make in your delivery? Like, what are some of the things that you've had to change over the last few years just to make things more effective for students all over the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll give you 2 examples. One is we're really selective about the courses that we offer. We have just 7 bachelor's degrees. We have a lot of certificates that you can choose, but we are focused on things that can scale to every country on earth. So for example, if you want to be a lawyer, BYU-Pathway is not for you. The rules about being a lawyer are different in every single country. Same thing with being a nurse. And so we make choices that we're not going to do those types of things. I think another one that we have done is online gives you some advantages that you don't get in a classroom. Of course, you don't have the same advantages of the classroom. When you go to a campus, you're looking for those star professors. We've productized the curriculum. And so the instructors spend all their time helping the students. It's not a video of the instructor. It's on your computer. that allows us to do a bunch of things. One, it's delivered the same way every single time. And so we don't have the tales of instructors who aren't good and the tale of instructors who are great. It's just consistent, right? And so we get higher ratings from our students. Another one is we can track eyeballs. We can see how well you're engaging. And then, we use AI, for example, to figure out which students are most likely to need help. One of the things I learned from Clayton Christensen at Harvard Business School when I was there was you would take his exam. Of course, it was a written exam, and he would send you back this long letter with all this feedback. And you'd think, boy, he really took time. I mean, sometimes they were 5 pages long.
Oh, my.
And what I learned from him was he didn't write a new letter for everyone. He knew all the challenges that we were going to have as we went through it. And so when he saw that we had challenge A, he had paragraph A that went into the letter. And so we've developed a system for our graders and our instructors where they can do the same thing. And they use these pre-written paragraphs to provide feedback. And then they can focus the time that they need to spend individually with students in, with those who need the most help. And what that has allowed us to do is actually increase section size, but at the same time, increase student satisfaction. We increased section size, and our students said, I can't believe I'm getting more time, more attention from my instructor. And so that's
unusual.
Yeah.
What you've basically done is research that I've worked on, and you've unbundled that faculty role so that you can reach greater efficiencies and be able to basically create a one-on-one customization experience, even though you're doing this learning part at scale. I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about, well, first of all, I'd love a story about a student, either one of you could share, that when they got that first certificate, what a difference it made to them. And then I want to go back and say, who was thinking about these stackable certificates? It was something that Michael and I actually did at a Bill and Melinda Gates startup called Portmont College at Mount St. Mary's. But it doesn't exist right now. It'd be hard to find information about it because in the end, we weren't able to overcome some of the traditional barriers. So talk about some student stories of getting these certificates and the thinking behind the stackability.
Boyd, how about you take the stackability and I take the student story? Would that be okay?
That's great.
Let me talk about a student in Argentina. He decided he wanted to go to college, and university in Argentina is free. The challenge, though, is because everyone wants to go and it's free, and they don't have unlimited seats. They divide the classes into morning, afternoon, and evening. And then they require people to take classes in each one of those time frames. So what it means is you can't go home, you can't work. And so it weeds out people, right? And that's the way they bring it down. And then it's slow. So to get a bachelor's degree will take 6 to 7 years. And so he said, I don't want to take that long. He felt like he should do BYU-Pathway. He had been a missionary for our church and had companions who were going back home and were going to BYU-Idaho or Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. And so he thought, well, I'll try out BYU-Pathway. As soon as he finished his first certificate, he started working for Hewlett-Packard in Argentina. And he said, that was my dream job.
Wow.
Well, when he finished his second certificate, or was about to finish his second certificate and get his associate's degree, he was so confident in his abilities that he interviewed with JP Morgan Chase in Buenos Aires. They were opening a new service center there, and he was going to be in IT. Well, he got the job, and one of the things he's told me is that what was really helpful to him was he was interviewing with an executive from the United States, and the executive asked him about BYU Pathway and what he was doing, and he explained the program, and and why he hadn't gone to the local university. And this executive said to him, "You made the right choice." Well, now he's a vice president at JP Morgan Chase.
Wow.
And, has hundreds of people reporting to him. And we have a fairly decent number of students who now work at JP Morgan Chase in Buenos Aires because of his pioneering example.
That is a fantastic story. And I know that there's probably more that we could go into, but let's get to Boyd and talk about the stackable nature of this. And Brian just mentioned that you're stacking up and you get an associate's too. You get your associates right there as well, which is, it's ideal. It's ideal. Talk about a little bit about that, Boyd.
So back in the 2017, 2016 time period, we started building BYU-Idaho certificates. 5 classes, 15 credits. Some of them are just a little bit shorter than that, but for the most part, 5 classes that are really job skills focused and based, like President Ashton said, on helping them get a job if that's all they leave with, almost like a safety net. If we assume we're only going to have this student for 1 semester or 1 year, are they going to leave with something that they can bank on? And so and this is all under the direction of Elder Gilbert when he was here as our president. We had introductory certificates and then some mid-level and some higher level certificates so that a student would start with those classes in a subject matter that they were most interested in. So again, that would help with confidence building, retention, hopefully help be a job skill focus that they could use. But part of the rationale for it was explained by Elder Gilbert and Michael Horn in a document called A Certificate, Then a Degree. Back in 2020 is when it was published. Yep. They were looking at the high student debt, right? Students that have the most debt without a degree, those non-completers, were the ones at the highest risk, and yet they were the ones least able to repay the student loans that they had. And that's 40% of our population today that goes to college.
Absolutely.
40% that don't finish. And so the goal was, how do we reduce both of these in tandem? President Ashton already mentioned we start them with the certificate and also with an institute class or a religion class. We start in that second certificate time to intermingle some GE with it as well. You get 2 certificates and your GE, including some religion and including some of those basic math, English, and breadth areas. Then you're ready for your associate degree. You round that out with the rest of GE and a 3rd certificate, and that was the bundled pack for our bachelor's degree. But it really had to be first means first, right? The first classes that they enroll in have to be that. Otherwise, we lose them in their passion, in their desire, in their seeing the relevance to what they really came to college for. And it had to be labor market focused. If it's got those characteristics, we could make it work and they could make it work. They were excited about it. So we saw our retention numbers go up, and we saw our completion rates go up, and we saw their satisfaction go up.
So you've got this great model now, the stackable. Are there things, I'm just sort of checking on the horizon, are there new specializations or pathways that you're looking at right now as, for offerings for the future? If you can't say, you can't say, but we'd love to know what you're thinking about.
Well, I won't go into specifics about what we might be looking at, but I'll tell you that it's an active, ongoing conversation. And we have to think about, where are our students going, right? We've got a worldwide audience, but we really rely on the pathways side to tell us what the world student demand looks like, and in the areas where they're growing the most, to know from people on the ground in those areas what the needs are. And then we can build the curriculum around that.
Let me talk about what we've recently added. Maybe that's the best way to answer this question. So one of the things that is really unique with our students is that we actually have a partnership with Gallup. And they've been trained as enumerators to do surveys around the world. And so we've just added a market research certificate. It goes into our communications degree and our applied business management degree. But our students who choose to go into that learn how to do market research, from taking the surveys in person all the way up to doing the analysis. And so we actually have internships for these students where they work with Gallup, they're working with the World Bank, they're working with other institutions, and we can do research in more than 100 countries around the world at a very low cost.
Fantastic.
I mean, and it's AI resistant, right?
Yeah.
AI is not going to replace enumerators going out and doing research for professors or Procter & Gamble, right? And so that's one we've added. Another one that we've just done a lot with is social media marketing, and we've actually changed our curriculum lately. We're working with a partner, and one of the things that is been interesting is there's not much search engine optimization anymore. When you do a search online, it's not a search engine, it's AI.
Not anymore, yeah.
The question is, how do you get rated higher in AI? Well, the answer is either you get a lot of good press or you have a lot of posts that are not AI generated.
Yeah.
And our students internationally who, a living wage in Africa is about $3 an hour. They can do those types of jobs. They're not going to get replaced by AI, but it's, there's companies that, thousands of companies that want to improve their ratings on these AI engines. So those are a couple of things we've done recently.
Thank you. I love the framing. I love the disruptive nature of you're taking the model and then you're using it to expand access, opportunity. So it's beyond just I'd say the higher ed thing. We're just in higher ed right here. You've created this bridge into the working world and are creating opportunities there as well.
Yeah, Vernon, and maybe let me add one other that we're working on. No one really knows how disruptive AI is really going to be. I remember the dot-com boom and all the predictions there, and there were going to be no more retail stores, and well, there's lots of retail stores, right? It changed how we did things in dramatic ways, but at the beginning, we didn't understand what was going to happen. And so I'll tell you one other thing that we're doing. We're saying, look, since we don't know, we're training our students how to use AI in productive ways. We want them using it. We don't see it as a threat, although you do have to have guidelines. But the bigger issue is we're teaching them how to learn for a lifetime, and we're teaching them how to get judgment. So what AI will never be able to replace is the ability of a human to say, okay, what really makes sense here? AI can make our work much more efficient, but it's not going to replace judgment. And so we want students who come out and they can do the work that's required now, but we want them to be able to adapt to the work in 5 or 10 years or 2 weeks, depending on the industry. And then we want their employers to be able to trust their judgment. They need to be good citizens, they need to be honest, but they need to have judgment and, have done enough reps with things that they can anticipate, okay, this is how this works. And, if we do it this way, it makes sense, and they become true problem solvers.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of our conversation with the leaders of BYU-Pathway Worldwide. It's a unique model that I think we can take specific ideas from and try to apply to our institutions. And come back next time for part 2 of our conversation, where we dig more into the 3-year degree and the future of education worldwide. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, follow us, and share this episode with a friend so we can all learn better to engage by design.